welcome to TRP News. I'm your host, James Andre, and I want to thank you for joining me. This week, a new poll is out for the Democratic candidates and the Republican candidates for President of the United States. All focuses on Iowa as the first primary of the presidential election. A poll from Quinnipiac is out, and it has Hillary Clinton leading the field with 57%. Bernie Sanders of Vermont has 15%, and Joe Biden at 9%. No other candidate tops 1%, with 14% undecided. Republican presidential primary has no front-runner, and all the candidates have identical numbers in the top 5. Clinton gets 46% of American voters to 42% for Ron Paul, and 45% of voters to 41% for Rubio. American voters say 53 to 39% that Clinton is not honest and trustworthy. 53% of voters say Hillary Clinton is not honest and trustworthy, but say by 60% to 37% that she has strong leadership qualities. Voters are divided 48 to 47% over whether Clinton cares about their needs and problems. Voters say 37 to 31% that Marco Rubio is honest and trustworthy, so he is the right side up in that by 6 points. 42 to 28% that he has strong leadership qualities, and 38 to 35% that he cares about their needs and problems. So he is right side up about caring by 3 points. So you can see why you've been seeing in a lot of the media these days attacks on Clinton's honesty and trustworthiness. That is where she is weak when it comes to poll numbers. She is upside down when it comes to trustworthiness and honesty. And that's why you are seeing a lot of these Republican false flag attacks. A lot of this propaganda. You're seeing a lot of articles bringing up Benghazi. You're seeing them bring up emails. You're seeing them bring up Clinton Foundation. And the latest attacks are her position on GMOs, which I'm seeing a lot about. Folks, Hillary Clinton has a long track record. There's a lot of things that she has said on record and things that she has done on record. So don't just take a summary or a sort of paraphrasing of her positions. There's a year and a half to go in this campaign, and there's plenty of time for Hillary to speak for herself on these positions. The latest one is Monsanto. She supports GMOs. She supports the chemical companies, and she hired a Monsanto person to run her campaign. Well, this is not really true as far as I know. She has said that GMOs, she supports proven seeds and fertilizers and chemicals that have a proven track record. So she is supporting a fact-based approach to dealing with the question of GMOs, genetic modification, and use in agriculture. And she has not hired a Monsanto person to run her campaign. She has hired a Monsanto person to run her PAC, her Political Action Committee, which is completely separate. Running a campaign means you help decide positions, you help decide objectives and policies. This is not what this person is doing. This person is helping people, helping get support for her and helping improve her image. So this is a completely separate thing. So just be careful, people. I'll tell you once again, be careful who you're listening to. Be careful because these attacks are getting intense and they're getting very, very intelligent, incisive. They're really figuring out ways to get into liberals' heads and influence their opinion. So I'm not saying you have to support Hillary over Bernie or Bernie over Hillary. What I'm saying is what you should do is support what you believe in, not be trying to knock down people who are working on your same side, okay? So if you are for Bernie against Hillary, then support Bernie. But don't try to tear Hillary down, especially if you don't have the facts, especially if you can't point to a quote or something specific that Clinton has done or said. So that's my big complaint and my big admonition. Make sure if you're going to make a criticism, you have actual evidence of what has been done or said. So much that's happening now, these right-wingers are putting up these news stories, and this information is designed to be picked up by liberals. Oh no, she's against GMOs. Oh no, she's not supportive of women's rights. Let me tell you something. Hillary went to China back when it was even more authoritarian and stood in their faces and advocated for women's rights. So this, to say now that she, somehow one thing she did means that she's not an advocate for women's rights is it's not reasonable. So just keep that in mind. They're working hard to spread doubt and misinformation. Check your sources. They're trying to scare you. Monsanto, she's too close to Wall Street. And it's not in our interest, it's not in progressives' interest to focus on the right wing. It's not in our interest to focus on Republicans. It's not in our interest to promote their media. It's not in our interest to tear each other down. We need to focus on our issues, progressive issues, and promote those, not try to knock someone else, not either on their side or our side. Let's keep it positive. Let's promote what we want to have happen, not try to tear down things we don't like, especially if we don't have all the facts. So also today, this week, as of this broadcast or publishing, last night the NSA, several provisions, including the NSA's bulk data collection program, expired Monday morning, 12:01 a.m. The parts of the Patriot Act expired, and now they are trying to work on a fix and figure out a way to continue some of these aspects of these programs. But a lot of people are saying that the bulk data collection program made famous by Edward Snowden is basically over because of public sentiment. There is a bill, H.R. 2048, also known as the House's USA Freedom Act, which has been promoted by the president for months now, and the administration. They've been trying to get Congress to make these modifications to update the Patriot Act to improve these questions that people had about surveillance and still accommodate the needs of national security. Unfortunately, as Harry Reid said, Mitch McConnell, the Senate leader, simply did not have a plan. He let things go too late. He gave the Senate a vacation, and then they couldn't get past I said Ron Paul earlier, Rand Paul, and now those provisions have expired. So supposedly, perhaps Tuesday of this week, there will be a vote on some of the fixes to this. The NSA's collection of phone records began in secret after September 11th, 2001, and was later authorized also in secret under Section 215 of the USA Patriot Act, and that's the section in question here, Section 215. The continuation of the program and its justification, as everyone knows by now, was revealed by Snowden in 2013. Some of the tools that are set to lapse or have been renewed in the past, and in this past week, President Obama said that they include the ability to seek a roving wiretap to keep up with suspected terrorists or spies who constantly switch out cell phones. So this is one of the issues, folks, and I don't know if I mentioned on this program or not, this NSA bulk data collection, to me, is just a lot of hullabaloo, much ado about nothing. Basically, they've collected a list of phone numbers. That's hardly an invasion of privacy as far as I'm concerned. And secondly, we have a U.S. Constitution, and it's not an unreasonable search and seizure. And if it was an unreasonable search and seizure, it's not something that they would be allowed to use against you unless you are a terrorist. So a lot of people got up in arms about this and claim Edward Snowden is a hero. I don't happen to think so. I think it's just another distraction. Who cares if they have a list of phone numbers? Phone numbers, you used to have to pay to get your phone number not in a phone book. Your phone number is usually widely and readily and easily available. And not to mention that, There are all sorts of similar types of surveillance already going on every day. You're worried about the phone company keeping a record of your phone number and giving it to the NSA. Well, when you drive down the street, there are government video cameras recording your car and your license plate. The government, the police, law enforcement agencies have devices that read your license plate and tell them who you are, what kind of car you're driving, who the owner of the car is. So this kind of surveillance is already pervasive. It's already something we live with every day, and guess what? You don't even notice it. So, when now we have a situation here where the outrage, the public outrage, which I think is misguided, has led to a situation where now the federal government can't even keep track of a terrorist conversation, a known and suspected terrorist, just because he switches cell phones. He just throws away a cell phone, and now because of Edward Snowden, thank you very much, now we have an issue where we can't keep track of him without continually figure out what number he has and going back and getting another warrant for that number. So hopefully some of these provisions will be addressed in the upcoming law, and Rand Paul's making noises about putting amendments on things, and the way the new bill is written, funnily enough, or humorously enough, the bulk collection is still done by the phone company. So that's another issue here. You're really just shuffling deck chairs, basically. Who gets the data, whether the phone company collates the data and sends it to the NSA, or the phone company keeps the data and the NSA just queries their database. How much difference is that? And are you going to really try to tell the phone companies, those of you who are so up in arms about the Patriot Act, are you going to tell the phone company that you do not want them keeping a record of your phone numbers? No, it's just not going to happen, people. So that's what's going on with the Patriot Act currently. And as I said, Tuesday we'll see if this new bill passes. But Rand Paul is trying to put amendments on it. And he points out the irony, which rightly so. He says we're just shifting the database from the NSA to the phone companies. But it doesn't matter, folks. It's a database, and it can't be used against you unless you're a criminal, unless they have evidence that makes it legitimate that they have this information. And not only that, it's just a list of your phone numbers, nothing more than a phone book. Yes, they can query those numbers and see who you've called, but it's just other numbers. And that only flashes a light and warrants further investigation if one of those numbers happens to be a number of someone involved in terrorist activity. So we'll let you know what happens with the Patriot Act and these various provisions. That's what's going on right now. All right, after a year after announcing its expansion goals to build a broad colonial empire across many countries, ISIS is operating or has cells in more than a dozen countries. This last weekend, Iraqi warplanes and artillery have bombarded Fallujah, Iraq, and the surrounding villages, two witnesses told CNN. This happened over this past weekend, the last 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Extensive bombing, and Fallujah and its surrounding villages are currently under ISIS control, although the Iraqi army is reporting that they have been pushed back. At least 100,000 civilians are trapped inside, sources in Fallujah said. Iraqi security forces lost 2,300 Humvee armored vehicles when IS jihadist group overran the northern city of Mosul. So this is in addition to what I told you about in Yemen. They are making gains. They've been pushed back somewhat in Iraq, but they've made gains in Yemen, gains in Syria, and gathering a lot of military equipment. In fact, they are better equipped now after the coordinated efforts to disrupt their advances than they were before. So I don't know how this is working out. Apparently not well. So they made gains, as I said, in Syria. And CIA Director John Brennan said on Sunday that the battle against the Islamic State will be a long fight that requires both a military and political solution. He also said that, I think there's going to, unfortunately, be a lot of bloodshed between now and then. So ISIS in more than a dozen countries with cells and territory, and making advances better equipped today than they were before the coordinated international effort to stop them. Also this week, an update on the global migrant crisis. It seems to not only be increasing, but becoming more treacherous. More than 5,000 migrants trying to reach Europe have been saved from boats in distress on the Mediterranean since Friday. So in the last 3 days, 5,000 people have been rescued from boats in the Mediterranean, and they are saying that there's more than 500 more to be brought in from sea. Migrants who left Libya in 25 boats were picked up by ships from Italy, Britain, Malta, and Belgium, assisted by planes from Iceland and Finland. Italy has so far borne the brunt of Mediterranean rescue operations. Most migrants depart from Libya, which has descended into anarchy, as since Western powers backed the 2011 revolt that ousted Muammar Gaddafi. Calm seas and increasingly calm seas, are favoring departures as warm spring weather sets in, and the current plan to disperse 40,000 migrants from Italy and Greece, where most of these migrants are headed from Libya, to other countries met with resistance this week, with Britain saying it would not participate, and some eastern countries calling for a voluntary scheme. In other words, they want to be able to opt in or opt out. In Canada, also, as of Monday, some 3,500 people from Haiti and Zimbabwe who've been rejected as refugees lose all status. That they had been under humanitarian sort of abeyance of any administrative action, and now they are going to be required to leave the country. In Solidarity Across Borders wrote in a missive, quote, "In factories, agricultural fields, restaurants, hospitals, and homes around Montreal, migrants work in precarity to produce cheap goods and food, to clean, serve, and look after the children of the middle class and wealthy." Also in the Ukraine, since conflict erupted last year, the flow of immigrants and asylum seekers from there into Poland and other European nations has steadily increased. Poland, Germany, Italy, and other favored destinations for Ukrainian asylum seekers have mostly rejected their applications or delayed their processing. The nations which don't want to open their borders to what could be another torrent of job-hungry immigrants, they point to the size of Ukraine and say that the most part of the western Ukraine is not conflicted. It's only the eastern part, and they could relocate inside their own country. In Paris, also this week, the closure of an illegal migrant camp was ordered. Hundreds of African migrants living in a shanty town in northern Paris, women and children among them, have been told to leave. Between 200 and 400 people currently live on the site. The dismantling of the camp is said to be accompanied by some lodging solutions and relocation of its inhabitants. There are other camps in Paris. Some refugees have been camping out for days, others for months. Many were trafficked from countries like Libya and had to pay thousands of euros to criminal gangs to transfer them to Paris. One mentioned Darfur to an RT correspondent. Another said he had no home. Now, remember I told you about this refugee crisis, and years ago, the concerts for Darfur, and we were doing everything we could for Darfur. Well, the crisis never ended, even though our attention did. These people are still living in difficult, dire circumstances and dangerous circumstances, and they're still trying to get out. The migration hasn't stopped. Well, Darfur is one of the largest refugee camps in neighboring countries surrounding Darfur. So, here we have a guy who's living in Paris, and he's made it all the way to Paris, and he's saying, yeah, it wasn't good there. And another guy said he didn't have a home. He doesn't even have a place to stay there. He doesn't have a place to stay in Paris. A lot of these people saved up what money they could, and they're basically trying to get to the UK or somewhere else where they can blend in, get a job, and perhaps they already know someone there who can help them survive and find a place to live. So the relocation proposal set to be unveiled next week would see Syrian and Eritrean asylum seekers shared among 23 of the 28 member countries over the next 2 years. Britain, Denmark, and Ireland will not take part. Thousands of migrants are thought to be stranded at sea, trying to head south to okay, I got ahead of myself a little bit there, but also in Southeast Asia, thousands of migrants are thought to be stranded at sea, trying to head south to Thailand, Indonesia, and Malaysia. In Southeast Asia, Thai foreign minister said that the migrant crisis had reached an alarming level. So we're all the way to Southeast Asia at this point. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, the trade group that you probably heard about, ASEAN, member countries that have agreed in the past week at a meeting to increase efforts to deal with the situation. Myanmar on Friday said it had picked up a boat with 727 immigrants on board, just a week after it picked up about 200 in its first of such operations. The crisis began earlier this year when Thailand cracked down on overland migrant routes, forcing people smugglers to use sea routes. So what is happening is that these people are coming from Bangladesh, they're coming from north, and they're heading down through these countries overland and to Malaysia and Indonesia. And what Thailand said, you know, we've got to stop this human trafficking because these are basically smugglers who are getting these people and making a lot of money off of them and often passing them off into indentured servitude or slavery or even killing them along the way and taking their money, just like happens in the U.S. here with coyotes in Mexico and that kind of thing. So with Thailand closing those inland smuggling routes, the smugglers have taken to the sea. They're shipping these people on boats, just like the people from Libya going to Italy and Greece. Now these people are leaving Bangladesh and Myanmar and trying to make it to Malaysia and Indonesia. So now, you know, once they reach those countries, you know, Malaysia has taken some steps. For example, you have to, just like here, you have to have a worker's visa, and now instead of the companies paying for these papers and these bureaucratic steps that these people have to take in order to work in Malaysia, now they are responsible for paying for all this, the process. And what happens is basically it's debt slavery. So you owe the company store, and you keep working, and you never pay off that debt. So it amounts to, as I said, debt slavery or just plain slavery. But what you see is that people are voluntarily going to this country. So we know Malaysia's Tier 3, and Tier 3 on the terms of humanitarian, the way they treat people and their humanitarian behavior, and that is the bottom of the list. So, but you see that the other countries in the area are treating people even worse because people are leaving to try to get to Malaysia. So a final statement from ASEAN included that Indonesia and Malaysia would continue to provide temporary shelter for migrants, provided that the international community would resettle or repatriate them within a year. Regional countries would intensify search and rescue efforts to ensure safety of migrants. So you're seeing the same thing you saw in the Mediterranean. You saw one country, Italy, doing everything it could to rescue and help these migrants coming from Libya, while other countries said, hey, it's not our responsibility. And now you see the same thing that has been happening here, is you've got a lot of migrants fleeing persecution and abuse, and refugees, basically. And the countries in there are saying, hey, it's not our responsibility. We don't want to spend the money. We don't want to put forth the effort. And it's the same thing. You've got people, now you've got Britain saying, we don't want any of these refugees from the Mediterranean. You've got Paris saying, hey, this camp's got to close. These people got to go. So these people are being shuffled around. No one wants to deal with it. And, you look at a lot of these human rights abuses and things going on around the world, and just imagine here, as an example, of the way people talk about Mexican immigrants and South American immigrants, if we didn't have the laws, the humanitarian laws, and the humanitarian practice that we do, how much worse the abuse of these people would be. I mean, it's already bad enough even here, the land of liberty, where we still take advantage of migrants and we still treat them as second-class citizens, which they're not even citizens, of course, but second-class human beings, I should say. And you just think of all the rhetoric that you hear about, oh, you see them, you should shoot them, round them up and send them back, even if they are in danger of their lives. So this is exactly the kind of mentality that you hear about illegal immigration that is actually being put into practice in other places around the world. So all of this, believe it or not, brings us to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. So, this, in the past couple of weeks, the fast track for the negotiations to the Trans-Pacific Partnership passed the U.S. Senate. What also passed was a provision that would effectively exclude Malaysia from the trade agreement based on humanitarian grounds. The fact that they have slavery in their country and they are a Tier 3 country when it comes to humanitarian conditions. So there's 3 tiers, and as I said, Tier 3 is the bottom of the barrel. They also are joined there by countries like North Korea and Saudi Arabia, and guess who? Russia. So they have some good company there. Last month, now the reason I'm talking about this is because in the news they're talking about the increase, and as I said, the Thai Prime Minister said that the crisis is at an incredible level, and really action needs to be taken. Last month, more than 139 grave sites were discovered, along with 28 suspected human trafficking camps in the far north of Malaysia near the Thai border. So they actually think that there's something more along the lines of 200 graves and 28, 30 camps, suspected human trafficking camps. So these people bring these people along routes, and of course now with Thailand cracking down, these camps are being abandoned and they're discovering them, and also with the international pressure, the pressure from ASEAN. So this is why I'm bringing this up, and I'll get to it more. But many are fleeing Myanmar to neighboring nations of Thailand, Malaysia, and Indonesia. And, of course, further exacerbating the issue is the Thai crackdown on land routes. Foreign workers from Indonesia, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Thailand migrate willingly to Malaysia. A number of the migrants, a State Department report says, subsequently encounter forced labor or debt bondage. Reuters also found that Thai naval personnel had worked with smugglers to profit from asylum seekers. So this is my point about this. There's been some progress made. First of all, a lot of people have been complaining as far as the Trans-Pacific Partnership about Malaysia being considered to be a part of the partnership. Well, one thing that becomes clear from what I just told you is that Malaysia is not the sole problem. So even though these other people are not on Tier 3 of the State Department's rankings, they are actually part of the problem, a serious part of the problem. In fact, people are fleeing to Malaysia to get away from some of these other countries. Thailand is cracking down on smugglers while their navy is profiting off the sea traffic from smugglers. So this is not just a Malaysia issue, and this whole migrant thing is not just, these people are being smuggled. There's human traffickers in the Mediterranean smuggling people to Italy and to Greece. And so, these people are moving people around the world and taking advantage of them. Even from here, from Mexico to the United States, people are being robbed, beaten, raped, and paying exorbitant amounts of money in order to cross borders here and around the world. So my point is that here we have some action being taken, Thailand cracking down on overland routes, and a couple of countries, including Malaysia, agreeing to more search and rescue operations and more humanitarian efforts in terms of saving these people, making sure they're safe and locating them properly, and helping the international community find a place for them. And why is that happening? Because they're part of this trade group, ASEAN. So, it's what's called constructive engagement, folks. It's the same thing with the Iran nuclear negotiations. Do we want to drop bombs? Do we want to put boots on the ground? Or do we want to find a way to tie ourselves to these countries, to the communities, in order to have a carrot instead of just a stick? You need both. You need the carrot and the stick. So that's what the president means when he said this will be the most progressive trade agreement in history. Now, admittedly, some say that that is a low bar. That may be true. But at the same time, it's progress. And as I said before, this is not the end. This is not the be-all and end-all. This does not have to be the final word on trade agreements, okay? So we can renegotiate NAFTA. We can renegotiate Korea. We can have new trade agreements. We have trade agreements with these countries. We're renegotiating them under the Trans-Pacific Partnership. We have trade agreements with European countries. We're renegotiating them under TIPP. So this is an ongoing process, folks, and we need to focus on what's really important, not demagoguing and saying, oh, look, Malaysia's Tier 3, they have slavery and they have basically labor they don't have to pay for. Well, what's your priority, folks? You want, is it more important to have $18 an hour, or is it more important to have $13 an hour and in slavery in Southeast Asia? I mean, at some point we have to, we're the world's largest military, we're the world's police, and at some point we have to mitigate some of these situations. And we really, as on a humanitarian level, should try to do it without violent action. Without going in and dropping bombs, without going in and shooting people. If we can do that, if we can agree with basically a ratcheting up of programs and efforts to improve these conditions, because this is not just about Malaysia and TPP. This is about the way we treat people around the world. This is about artificial borders. This is about countries protecting their economies over people's lives. And this is about a wink and a nod to by people who are profiting off of human misery. You have, military officials making money off of human trafficking. How do you think this stuff happens? So you can't just go in and say, oh, Malaysia bad, smack them on the wrist or shake your finger at them. You have to find ways to engage with them and to put the pressure on and to see and to have them see that it's in their interests as part of a larger community to do the right thing. So that's why I say, you can cry about TPP, and people are going back and forth. There's so many voices on this. On one hand, they have free labor, so it's going to depress our wages here in the United States. And then in the next breath, it's, well, they're, poor on their humanitarian record's poor. Well, we can't solve everything with one trade agreement, and we shouldn't even try. So, but I just wanted to point that out to you. This is not just about Malaysia. This is going on around the world, as I've given you extensive information about the refugee crisis and the number of camps, the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people, 52 million displaced people, according to the UN, currently in the world. 52 million. So this is not just Malaysia, it's not just Southeast Asia, and a lot of these countries have an issue. Thailand, Myanmar, Bangladesh, people are coming from areas in China. So, putting it all in Malaysia is just not, it's not accurate, and I don't think it's helpful. So just keep that in mind. Constructive engagement. Let's bring these people in. Let's help them see what's in their best interest and what's in the global interest as far as humanity and human rights. and that's the way to go as far as I'm concerned. All right, that's it for this week. I want to thank you once again for joining me. My name is James Andre. This is TRP News, and we will see you again next week.